Welcome to the Oral History Podcast, featuring stories from the oral history website voicesofoklahoma.com, where Oklahomans have given generously of their time to tell their life stories for present-day listeners and for generations to come. Our entire collection is available on the website voicesofoklahoma.com. Subscribe to be notified of new Oklahoma oral history podcasts. Here's another interesting storyteller from voicesofoklahoma.com.
Today's date is October 9th, 2009, and I am John Erling, here with
Peggy Helmerich. Should I say Peggy Dow Helmerich? Just for fun.
What was your legal name at birth?
Peggy Josephine Varnadow.
Somewhere I thought Margaret was in there.
I know, because Peggy is a derivative of Margaret, but I was christened Peggy, so I cannot claim that title. So I am really Peggy Josephine because my father, for some unknown reason to all of us, loved the name Josephine. And we never figured it out. It was terrible. I'm not too fond of the name. All you Josephines, forgive me. But in college, when I went off to girls' school, everybody called me Jo. So maybe that worked.
And then again, the last name is Varnadow.
Mm-hmm. It's a French name, and it means green forest, and it also was spelled D-E-A-U-X, but some of our grandparents changed it to D-O-W. And then when I went out to California, they decided D-O-W would be a pretty good name, so they renamed me Peggy Dow.
Your birth date?
Oh, John, do I have to tell you? All right.
That's up
March
to you.
18th. You should never know a woman's age. It's on the internet, I know. Everybody wants to really look it up. They can. You shouldn't know their age. You shouldn't know the size of their shoe, and you certainly should not know their weight.
So whoever is listening to this can work on their own to find your birth date. Is that what you're saying?
All right. Yes.
And where were you born?
I was born in a tiny little picturesque town in southern Mississippi called Columbia, Mississippi. And when I was 4 years old, we moved to Louisiana, another little town called Covington, Louisiana. And my sister was born. And subsequently, we always say, Mother sent us off to girls' school and moved. The family moved, but that really did happen in a way. They moved to Tennessee. They wanted to get a little bit north and, out of the heat. So my family moved to Tennessee, and my sister went to school there for a couple of years and then on to Colorado University.
Your parents' names?
My father's name was Leon Alvin. I beg your pardon. It was not Alvin. It was just Leon, something crazy, Varnadow. And my mother was Minnie Lee. And we all called her, grandchildren called her Lily.
What did your father do? What was his profession?
First of all, he had a little chain of grocery stores in southern Louisiana. And when the war came, he began to lose all the managers, so he went into the propane and butane gas business. And when he did that, he had to sort of teach farmers to put containers on their tractors, their automobiles. And in this one area in Tennessee, it was wonderful because everybody used propane gas because the filling stations sold it. But it was a tough kind of go, I would imagine, for him to really educate farmers because the tractors were clean as a pin. They had none of that kind of residue that gasoline gives cars and all that kind of stuff.
And then your mother, was she home to take care of the children?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Mom at home?
Yes, she was at home, and she was a very positive woman. And she thought my sister and I should be ladies, and she thought we should speak French, play the piano, tailor a suit if need be, and cook a 4-course meal if we were called upon to do it.
What was your sister's name?
Anne. She is now Mrs. John Otis Winters.
Are you the oldest?
I'm the oldest. Mm-hmm. I'm older than she. Mm-hmm.
You talked about your mother having that kind of influence. Did she have any influence in terms of acting?
No, she didn't, but we loved to sing. So my sister really has an excellent voice. And she, later on, after she graduated from Colorado, she went to Chattanooga Conservatory of Music, and Mr. Wolfe was there, who was a great friend of Humperdinck, who wrote Hansel and Gretel, the opera, and she sang the role of Gretel. And she sang a role in Carmen. And when stars would come to East Tennessee, she would always get a role in one of the operas. So it was really interesting. But I was the talented one, John.
Well, this talent for acting and singing, did that come from either of your parents, you think?
No, I don't think so. Except, Mother always encouraged us to do everything we thought we could. And I was always one to memorize little poems and recite them all to my relatives and grandparents when we went for weekends to visit them. And this friend of mine said, "You were always like a girl that had to be on the front row of the tap dancing class."
Okay.
So
this came on early then. So even when you were 5, 6 years old, you were probably doing that.
Probably, yeah. Probably.
So your elementary schooling was in what town?
Covington. We started off there in a, parochial school there. Mm-hmm.
Was that a Catholic school?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Were your parents were Catholic? Is that
no? Nobody was Catholic in our family. But my mother just thought the nuns were exactly what we needed to be disciplined and also learn lots of things. And it was very French oriented, in that southern Louisiana area. As a matter of fact, the operator, when you called, because you had to say in those days the number you wanted. You picked up the phone and the operator answered, and she would say, "Number, please," in French. And you would give the number, So we were in that kind of French area of Louisiana.
Did your parents speak French?
No.
You would go out about the town, even as a young person. Would you run into situations where you'd have to speak or understand French?
Well, we didn't, but everybody was dear, and, everybody was just very comfortable there with it because we'd understand enough that we could sort of squeak by.
So these early years, they were fun times, tough times?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful years, marvelous. We lived next door to Mrs. Daquin, and across the street were the Duberrys, and down the street were the Bougères, so it was really kind of a fun place to live. Oh, Mrs. Daquin lived next door, and she'd fuss at us all the time. And her daughter was Tutu, and she had a parrot, and she would yell to the parrot. It was a nutsy place. We loved it. It was crazy.
Were you ever able to stay in touch with any of those people as you grew older?
Not really. We didn't. I have some of them, but not very often. If I went back to Covington, I would go to see different friends just to see if they were still there.
Right. Middle school, where would that have been?
Middle school was in Covington. And then we went off to a school in high school called Gulf Park College for women.
And where was that?
It was in Gulfport, Mississippi, right on the coast.
What are your thoughts and memories of that experience?
Oh, that was marvelous. You could major in sailing or swimming. We were all on the swimming team. A couple of girls would bring horses, and the arts were wonderful there. And it was tough, though. It wasn't just a sort of play school. We had Gulf Coast Military Academy down the street, and we had the Air Force down another street, and the Merchant Marines were there. So we had lots of fun. Lots of boys would flock over there. It was fun.
This was a special school, and your father earned enough money to, it doesn't sound like you came from wealth as we would know it.
No.
Is that true?
No, that's true.
He was eking out a living, but he had enough to make it.
Oh, yeah, he did very well. Of course, for us, always. We always went to great schools. We always had everything we ever needed. We always had everything. I can't think of anything we didn't have.
So when you went to that high school, Anne was there too?
No, she was 5 years younger than I. So when I left, it was a junior college. Evidently, in our day, parents thought their daughter should be educated a bit and then marry. That was the entire life circle. And so this was sort of a finishing school, and you got finished, you got married. And of course, she and I were not interested in it, and so we didn't think anything about going on to college and other careers and things.
You knew you'd be doing that.
Absolutely. I wasn't about to start worrying about getting married to some boy. Or any boy I knew at that moment.
Were your parents also pushing you that way to not get married, but to move on and
No, I don't know how they put up with us. We were going in all directions and doing all kinds of things. And I had a teacher at Gulf Park who said, "I want you to go to Northwestern. That is the best classical theater training school in the world." She happened to have come from Northwestern University near Chicago in Evanston, Illinois. And so I called my mother and I said, "Mom, I want to go to Northwestern." And she said, "Northwestern, I'll have to find out about it and I'll get back to you." And she found out it was an old Methodist school started by the Methodist ministers and profession, and she thought that was just perfect, that I should want to go to Northwestern. Which, of course, it has nothing to do with Methodism today, unfortunately, but it is a wonderful, wonderful school. I couldn't possibly get in it today. I mean, it is really tough.
Let's go back to your even middle school and what you would call junior college. You were performing in plays then, I suppose?
Oh, yeah.
When do you recall your first play that you were ever in, and how old you might be?
In girls' school, we had to give a recital. A recital consisted of, if you were in the speech department, learning an entire play and doing all the parts of that play. And I did Elizabeth the Queen by Maxwell Anderson. And it was about the time in her life where she and Essex were trying to decide whether or not she was going to marry him and allow him to rule. And she refused to do it and sent him to the tower, and that was that. That's one way to get rid of the boys. So
you performed that
entire play in 3 acts. That's right.
In your junior college, your high school?
Mm-hmm. Junior college. So
let's go back further, even elementary. Do you remember doing anything on stage then, or middle school?
Oh, I did do one thing. I did A Night Before Christmas, the poem,
right?
On the stage.
So then it was in high school or junior college that you had your first stage experience. Is that true?
I did. Right. And in college, when I went to Northwestern, I went as a junior. So to get a part in a play was tough because they always gave, if you started a university as a freshman, you were given precedent over what parts you might get. So I did do a leading role in Over 21. And the only significant thing about it was written by Ruth Gordon. My father was Jeff McKinney's, who was in movies. He did The Life of Christ. It's an old movie that was really wonderful. He was probably the best-looking man I think I ever saw. He was beautiful. He should have been a woman. I mean, he just had startling blue eyes, a la Paul Newman, and he just had marvelous facial features. And of course, he got in the movies the minute he got out to California. Unfortunately, he died about 3 years later. He wanted to do his own stunts, and he was terribly injured, and he died. It was dreadful. We all really mourned him. He was such a nice guy.
So your experience in the high school or junior college actually then put you in as a junior at Northwestern.
Right.
That was quite a leap then, wasn't it? I mean, was that a big adjustment for you?
I'd only seen snow once in my life, and that was just about 4 flakes, as I recall. And my mother kept putting long underwear in my suitcase, and I kept taking it out. And finally, she said, "You are taking this to school." I said, "Mother, I am not wearing it, so don't put it in there." Well, when I got to school, it began to snow. There was my long underwear in the trunk, and I never took it off. I can tell you, it was really something.
In the Chicago area, it's extremely cold.
And right on Lake Michigan.
Windy.
The school is right on Lake Michigan. Interestingly enough, John, they needed more campus, and they filled in Lake Michigan with dirt and literally have built on Lake Michigan. It's interesting. Mm-hmm. But you never know it. It's, grass and green and meadow.
Some names of people that might have been important in school, particularly as you were in junior high or in Northwestern, that nurtured you, mentored you in your acting.
There were a few famous people there. Oh, gosh, I wish I could remember names. There was one very famous woman teacher who mentored and taught Charlton Heston, and she was very famous. Patricia Neal was a student of hers, and Cloris Leachman, just several. Those are the really big names that I can't remember, though, but...
At Northwestern, when you were there...
I was not there. I was just a couple of years after them.
But when you were there, were any names that were studying as you and then went on to become famous?
John Stevenson was a character actor. Paul Lynn was in my class. Charlotte Lebowski, who did several TV sitcoms. Very, very funny girl. And Paul Lynn, of course, was the star of the campus. He was so funny.
Did you appear in a play with him?
No, I didn't. He was kind of a stand-up comedian type, But Northwestern was great. It was the home of the WTCU. There was not a drop of alcohol
Women's
anywhere.
Christian Temperance Union.
Absolutely. My mother was thrilled about that. So off we all went to Howard Street. Howard Street was the cutoff place between Chicago and Evanston. One side of the street was wall-to-wall bars, and the other side of the street were just little shops. So Dave Garraway was learning to be a disc jockey in one of the bars, and we'd go to listen to him all the time. And his favorite, of course, was Sarah Vaughan, who was next door, and Billy Eckstein, who sang with her. And next door to them was Nat King Cole, and they announced that he was starting a trio, and they had a big opening for him. And then on down the way, it just went on and on. Oh, Fats Waller was then next door. And it was just an absolute retinue of stars and
that were
singers.
On the way up.
Right, that were on the way up.
And you recall being in those places and hearing those people.
And all the boys would take us in. I was so sorry I didn't like beer because you bought it by the pitcher, and then they'd give you pretzels or whatever, and you spent the evening on one pitcher of beer. It was sensational. We had to drink Coca-Cola because none of us really liked beer very much.
That must have been something then, as Nat King Cole and Sarah Vaughan, they became
popular.
Can
you imagine that then?
To know that you had been there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure.
When they were practicing, so
Absolutely. They were learning how.
What a fun, great memory you have of all of that.
It was really, really wonderful. I couldn't tell you if the fight song,
yes,
if I heard the Northwest, I wouldn't know it at all. Because if you had a date, you went into Chicago. All the dances for the schools and the sororities were all held in the Chicago Hotel, the Stevenson and the thousands of other hotels downtown. And of course, we'd all go downtown. Ray Bolger appeared one time for a school dance, and he was so funny. And there was a great tenor, Phil, somebody that I can't remember his name, he would sing, and then they would do a little comedy act together. It was just, we were sort of snobbish at the time, but it was great fun.
So you didn't know your fight song? Is that because you didn't go to football games and all?
After I married, I went to Northwestern. As a matter of fact, we lost every game for 37 years, but we had a wonderful song. Don't you worry, you're all right. We don't care. You'll win the day, and they'll be pumping our gas someday. Or something to that effect. So we thought we were terribly great, But when I married, Northwestern played Oklahoma. So we all went to the game, It seemed that the boys had been to a hotel to be fed the night before, and they all got ptomaine poisoning.
Northwestern's?
No.
Oklahoma's?
Oklahoma's team. And of course, Northwestern beat them soundly. Walt said, "Yeah, you took us up there and got us all sick. That's the only way you could win." I said, "If you can't come to the big city and tough it out, too bad, fellas."
So that would have been sometime in the 50s or 60s?
Yeah.
Eventually you had to move on from Northwestern.
I did.
Then what?
My roommate at Northwestern's father had died just as she was a senior, just a few months before we graduated. She said, "Please come out and visit me, and we'll pep Mother up. She's just really having a tough time." So I finally convinced Mom and Papa to let me go out, and that was fine. Dad also had a friend who was a writer, and I was going to go to see him to see what happened, how do you got along in any kind of career in movies. He didn't mind us going out to Hollywood, but he didn't want us to go to New York because New York was Sin City as far as he was concerned. But he had been to California, and he thought it was sort of a provincial town, but that was because all the buildings were short. Because in those days, you couldn't have more than a 3-story building, and it looked like a small town to him, and that was fine. I mean, little did they know. Anyway, I went out to visit Carmen, and then I called this writer, and he said, "What you have to do is find an agent." He said, "As a matter of fact, I know a really good guy, and his name is Ed Goldberg. Go and see him," which I did. And he said, "Well, I think we might be able to do something for you. We'll just send you over to his studio if you'd like to go." By that time, I'd been with Carmen about 10 days, and I called my father and said, "Dad, I've got to do something on my own." They were very kind and said, "Oh, please don't go, No. I said, "I really should get an apartment." So I found an apartment not too far from them, from Carmen. Yeah. So he said, "I'll give you 2 weeks." And so I said,
meaning
my father. "And then you come home, young lady." Enough of that. Anyway, during that time, I went out to Universal. They were starting a sort of in-studio class of young players. Tony Curtis, a young actress by the name of Piper Laurie, Annie Pierce, who was married to the director of On the Beach. Do you remember Gregory Peck was in that? He was a submarine captain, and all of a sudden the atomic bomb went off, and when he came up, everything was gone, sort of thing. Rock Hudson was in it, a fellow by the name of John Hudson, who did character roles forever. I was in the class. It was really an interesting group of us. We all kind of hung out together. It was fun. And so the director that saw all the young actors and actresses said, "If you want to read for me, come on out and read for me, we'll see." And so he said, "Yeah, you have an agent now." So he said, "We'll put you in the class and see how it goes." And they did.
And
there I was.
And
so I called Dad and I said, "This looks like it might work. There's a place I can go and live for 2 years called the Hollywood Studio Club, which was a woman's hotel that was sort of sponsored by Mrs. Cecil B. DeMille. She wanted to make sure that young ladies that came from small towns that wanted to be actors were kept safe until they decided what they wanted to do. You could live there for 2 years. So I enrolled at the Hollywood Studio Club. But, it was tough. Hours, you had to be in at a certain time. Your parents were written notes at the end of every month, sort of a deportment classified report. And it was really tough. I mean, you had to sort of mind your manners and all the rest. Marilyn Monroe lived there when we did for a while.
What was Marilyn Monroe like there?
Marilyn Monroe was very much of a loner. And we'd all say, "Come and sit with us at a table in the dining room." And she would say, "Oh, no, I have to go soon." So she would sit by herself usually. But she had a convertible out front. None of us had a convertible. We all had little Chevrolets that we somehow, our fathers would let us buy. That was about it.
Did she come from a family that gave her a convertible, or is it
I have
an
no
agent
idea.
or somebody?
None of us went into that. But we all had sort of an idea. But no, she was very nice. I shouldn't say that.
But she was shy, apparently.
Very shy, and didn't, she evidently wanted to have a career, and she certainly had it. It was really very successful. She was beautiful.
Did you and the others in the class look upon her as having acting ability and talent?
Actually, she was not at our studio. We were at Universal. I don't know where she was, at other studios.
RKO or someplace.
Yeah. And so, you didn't have much to do with other studios.
She just, that fact that you lived together in the same unit.
And she just lived there for a short while and then moved on. And I lived there about 2 years, and then I moved on.
Was this the point then that you were given the new name Peggy Dow? Was that okay with you? It didn't bother you at all
to
take on that
really.
name?
Mm-mm.
Was it true that you were cast in a TV show in about 1949?
I was.
What
The
was it?
Mummy's Foot.
The Mummy's Foot. And what was that about, and what did you play?
It was about a girl who had a dream. She dreamt that she was back in the times of Egyptians, and the queen's foot was missing from her sarcophagus. And everybody wanted to know what had happened to it. And she was accused of it, and then she would always wake up. And she was dating a boy who ended up playing Dagwood in the Dagwood and Blondie sitcoms years after that. And I guess I did one or two of those shows, and that was sort of it, just an appearance.
That was in 1949, I believe.
Probably, right.
I guess TV show that was just shown maybe on the coast. It wasn't nationally by that time. It was
it was so new.
Yeah.
TV was so new that nobody wanted to be in TV because it was just very experimental.
Is it true that Universal Films came to you?
No, they didn't come to me. I was working for them.
Okay, that's where you were. And did they offer you a 7-year contract, Universal Films?
That was all you could get. You were under contract to the studio. They could fire you at any time. You couldn't leave. You had to finish the contract, and they absolutely had you chained. You couldn't budge. You had to just leave and not work. You just had to say, all right, you have the contract. You will not release me. Then I'll leave, period. Goodbye. And, of course, even after Walt and I married, I was still under contract for about 3 years. And they would send me notices saying, you had better not appear in anything or we'll sue you and this and that. So I never did anyway.
So you were paid a flat fee.
Right.
And then you had to appear in as many films
any and everything, right.
as they wanted you to.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And you remember what kind of money you might have been paid back then?
I think I started off at $150 a week, which was big-time money.
Yeah.
And I remember after about a year and a half, I was increased to $200 a week. Wow, that was really something. But of course it was expensive to live out there too, so you didn't save very much.
You weren't able to
I would call
money.
Daddy quite often.
Even though you were making that kind of money?
Yeah, I was. That's right.
Did you buy a car?
I did.
What kind
I
of
bought
car?
a car, a Chevrolet. It was a hatchback. It was very chic, I thought.
What color was it?
Green. Beautiful shade of green.
In
Went with the environment.
1950, 51 in there? Is
It was about 50. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
It was fun.
Maybe many of your cohorts there, they bought cars, women?
Oh,
even?
yeah. We all bought a car. That was the big thing, as soon as we could. And then, of course, you never saved any money. You just paid on a car forever, for years.
Guys in the community must have been chasing after you, starlets. Here you were beautiful, and you had your own car on top of that.
Oh, yes. It was wonderful fun.
Driving down with the sunglasses on and the whole bit.
Of course. We all peroxided our hair and went flying through Sunset Strip.
That's got to be a wonderful memory for you.
It really
all
was
those
fun.
days.
It was great fun, yeah.
I don't want to give you your age away, but you're about 21, 22 years old in there.
I
that period.
was. Mm-hmm. That's right. As a matter of fact, I was 20 because I graduated from school when I was 20 from Northwestern. And I had to go before a judge because I don't know if you remember, but Mickey Rooney, when he was little, and all the younger stars, their parents would confiscate all their great money, that they made when they were stars. Jackie Coogan was a great example because his parents, when he was old enough to ask them, where is the money, it was gone. And so you had to have a court order that your money, all that you were paid, had to be put in escrow until you were old enough to decide what to do with it.
So for you, that 21 was the age, I suppose.
I only had a year.
And you had a year.
And that's right.
In escrow. So you built up a little savings then.
Not much, but some.
Was that a huge transition for you to go? I mean, basically you were from Mississippi and then you jump into Hollywood, and It was a very, very big transition. And I knew Tony Curtis quite well. All of us knew each other. We hung out all the time, and if you went any place, they'd all call and say, are you going? Yeah, let's go. We'll all get in and we'll go. And his parents were waiting for him to really make it big so they could move to California to be with him so he could support them. My family was saying, get home. Is that long enough? All right, you've been out there 2 weeks. Isn't that enough? Dad, I've got a contract. I know whatever you have. That's ridiculous. You come home, Now, please come out. Let me explain it all to you, So they did. They came out and they met my agent and they gave him instructions. It was hysterical. And they approved where you lived?
Well, yes, absolutely, because there were no boys ever. You had to be in at a certain time and that was it. So that was great for them and terrible for me.
So they then approved and saw what you were doing.
And they came out pretty regularly to see us, and I went home a lot.
To a class of yours maybe and watched
Yep,
you?
They were really good. The class lasted, there was one at Paramount and there was one at Universal. I don't know if RKO or 20th had one or not, but anyway, Colleen Evans was at Paramount. She was a friend of mine. At least I knew her. And she married a very famous minister in the Hollywood area, Presbyterian minister. And they were sent to Washington, D.C. And when our son worked in Washington, we went to see him at one period of time.
Which son?
Matthew, working for Senator Bourne, as a matter of fact. Mm-hmm. And we went to church. And Matt said, Mom, I've been going to this church, and Miss Evans, I think, was about your era of Hollywood. And, of course, I realized it was Colleen Townsend Evans, so there she was, Colleen, and there I was.
Townsend Evans.
Evans, She married the Evans minister by that name.
I think she starred in a Billy Graham film.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm certain she would have, yeah.
One of the first films that he produced.
Right. I'll bet she did.
It seems that you were able to walk into a film set where you didn't have to take some of the starlet bit parts, that you walked in and were able to get a real solid part from the very beginning. Is that true?
That's about right. It was actually, it was a sensational role. I played the other woman in a movie called Woman in Hiding. And Ida Lupino was in it, and Stephen McNally, who was going to be a really great villain, and he was being primed for all that. And Howard Duff, who had been on radio, as a matter of fact, for years and years, and had become a movie actor. It started out, there was a factory, and Mr. McNally was the director of the factory, and the owner of the factory had a beautiful daughter named Ida Lupino. And Ida Lupino was there, and the director, Mr. McNally, decided that's the catch of all time, and I am going to see how I can work things out with Ida. And so he began to court her, and she fell madly in love with him. And then he was sent to another factory that her father owned, and when he came back, he thought, this is what I've got to start up again. And so she said, you left me. Oh, no, he said, I had to go off and do all this stuff, but now I'm back, and let's get back where we started. So they marry and decide to honeymoon in this beautiful log cabin up in the forest, and it is marvelous. So they drive up in a lovely convertible setting and park in front of the cabin, and about that time the door of the cabin opens, and there I am. I have a drink in one hand, and I'm leaning against the door with the other hand, and I say, Stephen, darling, I didn't expect you this soon, and all this nonsense. And he pushes me away, and I said, all right, I'll leave you alone. And I threw the keys to the cabin. I said, but you might like to have the keys to the cabin, darling, and left. That was it was, well, I was so excited about that part. I called my mother and I said, Mom, you won't believe this part I have. It's wonderful. I got the part from making a short film of it. And the head of the studio said, Peggy, I'm going to let you make this little piece of film. The most important thing in Hollywood was to have a piece of film you could take to another studio and all around, so you could get parts. If they saw you and they wanted to use you in something, they could do it. But you had to get on film. So they said, if you do this, you can't take it around because it will leak to the other studios the plot of what we're going to do in this picture. And we want that to be one of the most important scenes in the thing. So I said, that's all right, I'll do it just to try and see what you look like on film, So I did this part, and they put it away. And when they decided to do the film, which was about 2 or 3 months later, I got the part. That was really fun. They had me under contract, they might as well push me a little, and it was not too big a part. But it was a nifty first scene, in any movie. It was really, my mother. Oh, I called and said, Mom, guess what? I'm playing the other woman. And there was this long silence on the phone. And she said, what? And I said, I played the other woman. I said, it's fine. That's the way Bette Davis got started. She said, you get the good girl part. And I said, Mom, Ida Lupino has the part. I can't get it. Sorry about that. Want it, but can't do it. Oh.
So that, Woman in Hiding, was your first film?
Yeah, it was.
I believe your next film was Undertow?
Undertow. Mm-hmm.
You played the part of a vacationing school teacher?
Yeah, I did. And I smoked in that film. And years later, the boys saw it, and they all went, oh, Mom, you're smoking. They all had a fit. Dad, did you see that? She's smoking, And I gambled. I was shooting crap at the table, and it was terrible. It was terrible.
What about your parents then? Did they know you were smoking in a movie?
Eventually they knew. Poor things. Oh.
You remember who you may have starred with in that, or some names?
Scott Brady and his brother, and Richard Conte was in that film. He was a gangster type, very swarthy, dark, good-looking Italian, and he was marvelous. And his brother, John, was even more handsome than he. He was such a good-looking guy.
I can throw out some other names of movies, and you can comment on them.
Oh, sure. See, I was just there almost 3 years, not quite. And movies take a long time to make.
So you did 9 or 10 movies?
Yeah, about 9 or 10. Mm-hmm.
You Never Can Tell.
That was Dick Powell, yeah.
What kind of a person was Dick Powell?
Oh, he was a dream. He was absolutely darling. He was married to June Allison at the time. And we had great fun going up and having dinner with them. They had a hilltop house. You could just see eternity from that house. It was beautiful, the ocean and all the rest. It was lovely.
Are you dating any people here in this time period?
I really wasn't. I did date some boys off campus, as we said, that were not in the movie business. I dated a boy from Chicago that had also gone to Northwestern, but I didn't know him there. Yeah, I had several.
But they were outside
friends.
the business, your business.
Oh, yeah, they were.
Another movie you were in is I Want You, Dana Andrews.
Right, Dorothy McGuire. Mildred Dunnock, I think, was in that, and she was the mother, in the original cast of Death of a Salesman on the stage in New York. Bob Keith, I think, was her husband. It was a series of families. Bob Keith and Millie Dunnock were the father and mother, and then Dana Andrews and Dorothy McGuire were the next couple of the World War II era. And then Farley Granger and I were in the Korean War. We represented the Korean War. So it was all about 3 different wars.
The movie I Want You.
Mm-hmm.
Reunion in Reno.
That was with an actor by the name of Mark Stevens, and Gigi Perot was a little girl who wanted to divorce her parents. She was furious with them, and so she somehow got to Reno. And Mark Stevens was the lawyer, and I was someone who was, I don't know what. I had a job and was his friend.
Frances D., is that a name?
Oh, she was in it, yes. She was married to an actor by the name of Joel McCrae, an old actor who was marvelous, a darling guy.
Your parts, your lines, and so forth. Was that easy for you to memorize?
No, well, you just worked at it terribly hard, and you were given a script and expected to memorize the entire script, because movies are never made in sequence. You might do the end of the movie first, then the middle, and then maybe the beginning months later, and then the second phase of it, another time. So whenever and whatever setup they made, an outdoor setup or an indoor whatever, why you had to be ready for that particular part of the script. And it was tough. You had to really spend a lot of study time by yourself to grind it through.
Here we are into about 2-3 films of yours in 1951. Did your parents go to a theater to see the films of their daughter?
Yeah, of course.
And so what was their feeling and reaction to it?
Oh, they were so funny. I didn't like the dress you wore, and so on. My gosh, here were these designers, Edith Head and Ori Kelly, doing all these clothes. And I'm saying, well, Mom, I didn't decide on that material.
But they were proud of their daughter.
Oh, yeah, they were really cute about it. I have to come home every 3 or 4 weeks, so no matter what. Unless I was working, I couldn't have right in the middle of something.
Bright Victory was another film. You were really busy in 1951.
I was.
As I count here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the 5th one in 51. Mm-hmm. It's almost hard to believe that you could pull that kind of work off in a year.
I can't imagine. That's right. I had no idea they were all dated like that, but it was a busy time.
Arthur Kennedy, Julie Adams, John Hudson, James Edwards.
Right. That was a very interesting movie. We were sent up to Philadelphia to the hospital that took wounded soldiers who had become blind or lost part of their sight. And they would train them to go back out into the world, and not with dogs, interestingly enough, but on their own. And this whole town was mapped out, and each person who had lost their eyes had to memorize how the town worked and what you listened for to be able to cross a street or go anywhere. They could do almost anything. It was absolutely miraculous. A blind person can absolutely run up and stop maybe a foot before a solid brick wall. Their senses are such that just because of heat and different sensory things in your skin even are just so alert to all that. It was fascinating. We would go out and play golf with some of them. You could ring a little bell over the golf hole, or whatever, make a little noise, and they all bowled. You couldn't believe the things they were able to do.
You began to experience, because this was about this blinded war veteran, and he had to adjust to civilian life.
And it was a true story. He became a lawyer and won several cases just because he could sense from the people if they were fibbing or lying to them or not, and what happened. It was really fascinating.
And he had to learn to tone down his racial prejudices, I think.
Yes, he did.
Isn't that true?
That's exactly right.
And then you played the woman who loved him, Arthur Kennedy.
Right, and he was going to go home and marry another girl, his childhood sweetheart, and her father was very much against it, and so she turned him down, so I got him.
Jumping back now to 1950, because then there was a film that really became famous, and that was Harvey.
Right.
And of course, starred James Stewart. Talk to us about that experience.
It was really an interesting experience because I was not going to do it. I had a role of an Indian princess that was in a movie that was starring Van Heflin. He was a very famous actor at the time. And I could not wait for it. I wanted, and as they do things, here I am, a Nordic, Caucasian type. I was going to get a black wig and brown contact lens, and I was to be the Indian princess in the part. Well, I just thought that was wonderful. I was learning to ride a horse and do all kinds of wonderful things, and I was thrilled. Walt came out to visit me that weekend, and he had met my agent, and they had become fast friends. And I wasn't too pleased about that, but anyway, they corresponded and talked on the phone, evidently, and he kind of kept up with me, and I didn't like it one bit, but evidently it worked out all right for him anyway. So there I was, sort of talking over this part with the makeup man, and in walks Walt and my agent. And the agent comes over and says, "Peggy, you won't believe it. It's wonderful. You have a role in the movie Harvey, and it's the nurse, Ellen Kelly." And I said, "That's no part. What do you mean? I am going to be an Indian princess." They said, "You've got to be nuts." He said, "Don't you realize that people will be watching Harvey with Jimmy Stewart 50 years from today?" And so they talked me into it. But I never wanted to do it.
So Jimmy Stewart had already established himself as a major star.
And he had already promised to be in the movie, and they had signed him up. He signed up to be in it, so it was a done deal for him.
What is your remembrance of him working on the set?
He was absolutely the cutest guy. You can't believe how much fun he was. And he tells such cute stories on himself. And there's so much downtime in a movie. You wait for the set to be finished, and you wait for them to light it, and you wait for your stand-in to go through all the rigmarole you'll have to go through, and all the walking and sitting and everything, and how that lights and how this lights, and on and on. And then finally they call you in, and you do the part in 15, 20 minutes, depending on the retakes you have to make. And then you just sort of sit around and chit-chat and talk with each other. James Cagney used to tap dance. I mean, people did different things. So Jim and I were sitting up at the top of the stairs waiting to come down in Chumley's Rest psychiatric clinic. And he said to me, "You know how to touch your nose with your tongue?" And I said, "Well, of course not. Nobody can do that." And he said, "Can you kiss your elbow?" I said, "No, nobody can kiss their elbow." And he said, "Watch this." And he stuck his tongue out and touched his nose. I almost fainted. The director said, "What's going on up there? Quiet, what's going on?" We were hysterical. He was a nut. He would just do anything to sort of take up time and keep you upbeat. And he was so good to young people. Charlie Drake and I were having a great time with him. He was the young psychiatrist, my love interest in it. And
in Harvey.
Yeah. He had no narcissism. He had no glitzy Hollywood attitude. He was a true World War II hero. He flew, I guess, 30 missions or so. He was loved by everyone. He adored his wife. He tells a story when they had twin girls at the hospital. Gloria had said, "I've got to go down in a wheelchair. It's hospital regulations. I'll meet you at the front door now, Jimmy, and I'll take the girls, and you drive the car around and meet us, you know. So she went down in the wheelchair, and there was no Jimmy. And she waited and she waited. She had a baby in each arm. She said to the nurse, "Here, take the babies and loan me a quarter." In those days, we had pay phones in the hospital. She took the quarter, went over, and called Jimmy at home. He answered the phone, said, "Gloria, where are you?" She said, "Where am I, you idiot? I'm at the hospital." Oh, he said, "I'll be right there, I'll be right there." And so he forgot his own twin babies.
Was he a forgetful kind of person when he was on the set, or was he?
Not that I remember. And he never forgot a line. I mean, he was professional. Oh, and if you forgot a line, he would remind you right there on the spot. "We have to get this done. This is absolutely the most important thing you can do." So we all made sure we had it down cold. But that was great training. I mean, that's the way you should be. If you're going to do anything, you should be a professional. Ugh.
The Sleeping City, I don't know if that holds any memories for you or not.
Actually, that was my first movie, John. I was in it about 30 seconds. I went to New York for a month and a half. I met my husband there, as a matter of fact. And I came home and ended up on the cutting room floor. So I always say Woman in Hiding was my first role, and in truth, it really was. So that was my first movie. But it was fun.
Other people you worked with, did you work with Rock Hudson?
I did. He was in Bright Victory. When Arthur Kennedy was shot and lost his sight, Rock Hudson was driving the Jeep. That was one of his first parts. So he was just a kind of stand-in type, called a soldier. He had a tiny part in that.
What are your memories of him? He was obviously a very good-looking young man.
Oh, he was darling. And we used to make appearances together, and all the girls would just go absolutely bananas. He was just such a good-looking. He was such a sweetheart. He was shy, and he fell in love with... who was in White Christmas? Not Vera Ellen. Yeah, maybe it was Vera Ellen. She was a dancer. And he was just absolutely thrilled with her. And then all of a sudden, she broke his heart and married someone else. And I got married myself, never saw him much
Rock
again.
Hudson, you never saw him again?
No. So he developed into whatever he developed into.
So these films in the 49-51 era, did they have royalties then? Were they paid out to you?
Not to me, not to those under contract, right. And I did make a movie with Sam Goldwyn. The movie was I Want You, as a matter of fact. That was his movie, and it was made at Goldwyn Studios.
Did you feel his presence around?
Had dinner with him first night. Had to go to his house and have dinner. And it was beautiful and so much fun. And he was married to a woman by the name of Frances Farmer, an old movie actress. And she determined what our wardrobe would be like. She was with us every day. The only thing was we had to bring most of our own clothes except dresses that were important in a scene, and wear our own shoes and all that, which I didn't like. I mean, at Universal, they supplied everything you ever put on. And then if you had to have an appearance, for example, if you had to go to Ciro's for an evening of some big happening, Tony Curtis was assigned to take you, so he was all in tuxes and everything, dressed, and we would go down and get an old dress that Olivia de Havilland had worn, or just some wonderful actress's gown that they had in the stockroom. And you had a wonderful time. They'd give you beautiful jewelry to wear, and you looked like $1 million, and you had to give it all back the next morning. Bummer. But you'd make an appearance. It was fun.
There were magazines dealing with Hollywood and stars then, weren't there?
Right.
And so I recall you made it on the cover of Life magazine.
I did. But the funniest one, I was given an assignment to go out to a person's home and buy her swimming pool, wear a bathing suit, and have a bathing suit shot there. What I mean is a photograph. So I went out, it was freezing cold. I was in a two-piece bathing suit, and I was stretched out by the pool and all that. And finally, this woman said, "Why don't you guys come in? I'll fix you a cup of hot tea." So we ran up to the house, and guess who it was? Jane Russell. I said, "If you use that bathing shot of me, I'll kill you." I thought, well, she should be down here in the bathing suit.
So it was at her home.
It was at her home.
Her swimming pool.
Right.
And by that time, she had become...
Oh, wow. You know, she had become the curvaceous wonder of the world. Howard Hughes had put her in all kinds of things, you know, and she had done The Outlaw, and that was her big movie. And
was she older than you?
Oh, yeah, she was. She was married to a football player, somebody at the time. I think she divorced him several years later, but she was very sweet and became a great Christian.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. She knew, I guess, Dr. James Kennedy down in Coral Springs in Florida. Yeah, she really did. She was an interesting woman. Mm-hmm.
So then you used her pool and had tea with Jane Russell.
Right.
Then she went on. They had a Jane Russell line of swimming pools, didn't they?
I think probably they did, as I recall. That's true. It's a long time ago, but she was really cute to us. I thought, what am I? Oh, flat chest here, doing bathing suit.
Yeah, but you were Peggy Dow, and you were
terrible.
A star. So you did that shoot for magazines, and were people trying to get your autograph, I suppose, back in those days?
Oh, that was so fun. Oh, yeah. And you decide how you were going to sign things, you know, you were going to scribble it across or really write it out or whatever. It was so fun.
And you go to the premiere of the movies?
Oh, yeah. We would go to all kinds. And the Academy Awards, you know, we always showed up with somebody. It was fun.
You'd go to the Academy Awards?
Oh, yeah. I was in an Academy Award one time. I gave out an award.
Oh.
Yeah. I gave Edith Head an Oscar for dress designing. She was very famous at Paramount.
So that had to be in 51 or in
oh,
there
yeah,
as well.
It was. It was really fun. Met Johnny Green. He was the orchestra, you know, and he was directing everything. And he was a great piano player and wonderful fellow.
Somewhere along in all this fun, you meet a guy by the name of Walt Helmerich.
Right.
Can you tell us, before he shows up, how did you meet?
I was asked by Nina Foch, who was a character actor, a darling girl, who was engaged to John Conte, to go to the opening of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. I said, "Oh, Nina, I just cannot." She said, "I have a date for you. He's a wonderful guy. You're going to love him." You know, I said, "I don't do blind dates first. And I'm going home tomorrow from New York." I was in New York. This was all happening in New York. And I said, I just don't have time. I've got to pack and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And she said, "Oh, you got to go to an opening." She said, "We all go to the St. Regis roof and we wait for the newspaper reports, whether the critics liked it or not. And this is so important. So you've got to come and wait and see how the reviews were."
And Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Did you remember the stars?
It was a stage play.
You weren't in that
Carol
film.
Channing. That was her first Broadway appearance. And a lot of kids that we knew from California who were dancers were in it. So I thought, gosh, I really should go. And I've never been to an opening, and it's a big hoopla and all kinds of stuff. So I got my fanciest dress, and I said, "Oh, Nina, I'm going to go just because I'm curious." But I said, "I've got to come home early and blah, 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 you know." So off we went, and it was a wonderful play and great success, and Carol Channing was marvelous, and I saw Hedy Lamarr for the first time and all kinds of wonderful people. They were all there at this St. Regis roof party waiting for the reviews. So we were sitting and having a marvelous time, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, there was a great staircase coming down to the dance floor, and everybody that came in had sort of a little entrance to make. And here was this gorgeous blonde girl, sort of Lana Turner-ish, in this big bassoon dress I thought was cut too low and rather inexpensive looking and that sort of thing. She was flanked by two young men, and she makes a beeline for our table. And I couldn't believe it. She says to my date, "Tony, darling, how are you?" I was with a man by the name of Anthony Farrell, who had sponsored musicals on Broadway, and she was a singer. Her name was Monica Lewis, and she was a knockout in some people's notions. So she looked at me and said, "Oh, excuse me, darling," as she moved in to chat with Tony. One of the young men with her said, "Would you like to dance?" And I thought, no, I wouldn't like to dance. I wouldn't like to do anything but get this babe out of the way. And Nina said to me, "Peggy, that's Walt Helmerich. Watch your step." And so I said, "How are you?" And I said, "Oh, sure, let's dance." So we got up and we sort of danced around, and he said, "I'm with a young man by the name of Ralph Fields, whose father wrote the stage play for Gentlemen Prefer Blondes." So he was going to introduce me to some interesting ladies in the show, but I'm so glad I saw you, or some nonsensical chit-chat like that, And we danced and came back, and she was still busy, and poor Tony Farrell was looking around her, waving at me. We danced again. So at the end of the evening, he, of course, left, and we left. And that night, I got a 4-page telegram from him telling me how I could fly from Athens, Tennessee, because he knew I was going home for Christmas, to Hollywood and stop in Tulsa. So I said, "Mama, what do you think?" She said, "I don't know, dear. If you want to stop a half hour and have a Coca-Cola with him, that might be all right if you like him that well. And get on the plane and go on to work." So I said, "Okay, I will. I'll stop for a half hour and have a Coke." So I wrote him, "I'll be happy to stop for a half hour." "Oh," he said, "that's fine." So the plane stopped, got off, there was Walt, and we were sitting in the little dining room of the airport having a Coca-Cola when this announcement came over the loudspeaker: "There is mechanical trouble on the plane to Los Angeles, and we will be here, I'm afraid, 4 to 5 hours." So I saw Tulsa. That was the day I saw Tulsa. I thought Oklahoma was sand and tumbleweed. And of course, I had a friend at home who married a boy from Denver, and her father thought he'd never see him again, ever. So he had her portrait painted. But it was sort of the end of the world for all of us,
I'm curious about the plane landing. It almost sounds like you had a private plane.
It sounds like it was fixed. No, I was on Delta or whatever, American. Oh, no, it really happened.
It was a natural stop.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
And you would have had a natural half hour.
Probably to refuel and go on. Oh, yeah, we would have had a half hour.
So then, when Walt first saw you at that dance and you danced with him, did it spark anything inside you that you thought?
Well, it was interesting because at Gulf Park, there had been 3 girls from Oklahoma City. And we had seen Walt most of the time that we could, and we weren't studying. We'd be in a lounge called The Smoker on the 2nd floor, and we'd watch all the boys. It was in a U-shaped building, and all the boys had to go down the middle walkway to the headmaster's office to call the girls for dates.
This would be back in Hollywood now.
No. This is in Gulf Park College before I went to Northwestern.
Oh, okay.
And everybody said, "Walt Helmerich is dating Susie Calloway." And we said, "Who's Walt Helmerich?" And Walt gets out of his little convertible with his raincoat on and the collar up and his lieutenant's hat on. And he is in the Air Force down the road in Biloxi, which was the city next to Gulfport, Mississippi. And he was dating these young women, and so he would strut down the and we'd hoot and holler. It's like, oh, you're a cutie. Who are you dating today? And carry on. We were terrible. And there he was.
And then here he shows up.
Here he is. And of course, the minute he said he had been in Oklahoma City, I knew exactly who he was. I said, I can't believe this. Did you know these girls at Gulf Park? And he began to name everybody, and we began to talk it over.
As I recall, he says that when he met you, I think he was attending Harvard Business.
Yes, he was. He was in Harvard Business School. And they had come down to New York for the opening.
And did he say that he had your picture on his dresser?
Oh, isn't that a story? I guess he did. I don't know. He was
because he had seen it
in the Boston paper.
And he'd seen this picture of this Peggy Dow, and he was so taken with your looks.
I'm sure. But he did tell me that. He said, I did see a picture there. So I guess it was true.
So did he chase you then to pursue marriage?
Yep. He asked me to marry him on the first, while we were dancing, as a matter of fact, on the first date I ever had. Oh,
first
yeah,
dance?
Absolutely. I said, are you nuts? Of course I wouldn't marry you. I don't even know you. What do you mean? And then finally, he kept saying, now we've got to get married. And I kept saying, Walt, you don't have a job. I'm not about to marry you. You don't know me, I don't know you, and you don't have a job. So we sort of fought it out for 2.5 years, and he gave up.
But then you were on a trip to Washington, D.C.
Yeah, right.
Did Harry Truman, is there a connection there with you and Harry Truman? What is that?
He gave the picture I was in, Bright Victory, an award. And I was assigned by the studio to go to Washington and make 2 or 3 appearances, with the press and one thing and another, and receive the award from President Truman. We all went over to the Hall of Labor. It was on the stage, and there was a big audience, and I was called out, and he read this whole thing about the movie and how it had helped veterans and how that was so important that they would know and could know that they were taken care of in all this business. Here's the award, and take it back to your studio with our thanks and blah, 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 So he was darling to me, and then we went to 2 or 3 luncheons, not with the president, but with different magazines and papers, people, media people. And I stayed in Washington 3 or 4 days and then flew home.
As I recall, you let Walt know that you were in Washington.
Right. I had to have an escort for 2 or 3 of the important appointments with the media. And so I called him and I said, would you come to Washington and be my escort? We'll meet the person that does Look magazine and this and that. And so he said, no. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. He said, but if you marry me, I'll come. And I said, what? And he said, if you'll marry me, I'll come. And I said, oh, okay, come on.
So that was your answer to marriage. Oh, okay.
That's right. Oh, okay. If that's what it takes, come on. So that's exactly what happened.
Well, we should say he has just walked in the room, and we're going to have him join us here. She has just told us, Walt, how you came to the debut of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and that you asked her for a dance, and that you actually asked her to marry you on that first dance?
No, I didn't. I didn't ask her to marry me until our first date in California 2 weeks later.
Oh, okay.
I went back to my table and said, I'm going to marry that girl.
Oh, that's
but
what it
you
was.
didn't know that.
Whoops, no, I didn't.
Okay.
Except for you telling me about 14 times since.
So then she's told us about how she stopped at the airport, had a 30-minute Coke date, and then it turned out the plane stayed for 5 hours.
I think she just changed planes so she could stay.
I did not change plane. You know very well it was a mechanical problem, and they fixed
The
it.
Lord's will.
Oh, don't start. Don't bring him into this.
So
It's not his fault.
she was just also saying that she went to Washington, D.C. and accepted that award for the film.
Yeah.
And then she asked if you'd come out there to Washington,
That's
D.C.
yeah. That's
And he did.
after I said, "Look, I'll come if you want to get married."
And did you have to argue with her? Did you talk her
No,
into
I
that?
just said yes or no. Let me know.
You were tired of chasing her.
Absolutely.
And that's when I said, oh, okay. Don't refute that. Oh, terrible.
So then you went out and started dating her in California.
Oh,
I'd fly back and forth from the business school.
and this was before jets. And
A
I'd go
9-hour
out
flight.
and meet him and go to sleep in my car waiting for him. And he'd come in sometimes at 11 at night and 12, and I'd wake up and realize he's sitting in the airport waiting for me. And I'd run in and get him and take
And-
him to his hotel.
And then he could
I'd
only
go back-
stay a day or two.
Yeah.
Oh, just overnight. Right.
Have to go back Sunday. Get there late Friday night and go back.
I wish I
Sunday.
had a nickel for every phone call we made. It was terrible.
This is what love is all about, isn't it? So then you knew that she would marry you because that's what she said
Yeah.
when she was in Washington, D.C. So then how long did it take after that before you...
We met on December 8th, 49, and were married in 1950
51.
in November.
51.
51, well, Rick came in 51. I guess that's
Whoops.
right.
Oh, no. Then it was 1950.
And where were you married?
Athens, Tennessee, my hometown.
Your hometown. Who was in your wedding?
My roommate and cousins and little
My sister, I
nieces
guess, wasn't
and
she?
sister, yeah. Your sister,
Yeah.
Kadaja, and
Your sister.
my sister. That's right.
Yeah.
You had Ted Reeds and Charlie Chestnut,
Dick King.
Dick King.
But then Dad was my best man. Reeds, Charlie, Dick King, and Gaylord Gray.
Gaylord Gray, that's right.
So
And they're
it's
all dead now.
They're all gone.
a pretty big wedding, wasn't
It
it?
really was. For our town, anyway. It was pretty big.
And then where did you honeymoon?
In Hawaii. It was fun. We went back a couple of years ago. And the
suite we had for
yeah.
2 weeks was $4,000 a day. Now.
A night.
A
We
night,
couldn't
yeah.
believe it. Oh, it was awful.
Ed
And that was
Hanlon, who was chairman of then National Bank of Tulsa, summered there for a month every year for years. He was a bachelor, never married. So he asked if we wouldn't like to go there. He would arrange it. So he gave, before he left, every year a golf tournament and gave fancy prizes to everybody in the tournament. So they adored him. So when we were his guest, that just meant everything out there. So we were treated very royally.
Here. Just royalty. It was so fun. It was wonderful.
You were a beautiful Hollywood star. Walt was a handsome gentleman, then, wasn't he? How would you describe him? You had to be taken with his looks and his handsomeness.
Right. I think
Isn't that
so.
true?
And his persistence.
Sweet persistence.
Oh,
So then you were married and you started a family.
we did.
5 young boys.
Right.
Their names are, for the record,
Rick, Zach, Matt, Hans, and John.
did you wonder if any of them would inherit your acting ability?
No, I never really
I
did.
thought Matt might have, but
Yeah,
he didn't.
he wrote a play,
Yeah.
and they did it out at Holland Hall. It was fun. He was a writer. He really has done some interesting things.
Peggy, your faith means a lot to you. Did
Yeah.
that come from home or in Hollywood, or was there something that brought that home to you strong?
It started at home. I had very Christian parents, and my father taught Sunday school, and when we were very young in Covington, we lived across the street from the church, and we were there. Every time the doors were open, we went to all the services. I just grew up in a very Christian home. My dad taught Sunday school. And when he died, I had to fight my sister for his Bible. But at any rate, Mother gave it to me. And he made little notes, in the margins. It's just like having a visit with him almost. It's just so fun to read it and read the things that were important to him. It's such an enlightening experience always.
Was there a big adjustment coming to Tulsa to live? Here you were, this Hollywood star, and is it tough in social scenes and so forth? They were a little put off by that?
I think probably there was, but I have to say that everyone was so sweet to me, so good and generous, and I had several really good, close friends here that I still have that are just, so important to me. That was so undergirding. It was just wonderful because I'm sure a lot of people thought I was going to dance on the tables and all the rest, but it never mercifully turned out anything like that. It was just a lovely experience always.
And you never looked back
Never.
on Hollywood?
Well, no, I can't say that I didn't look back, but I would never have traded 1 minute that I gave up for anything I could have had back there. I wouldn't. It was.
Tell him about the experience you went back and Bill Holden
Oh,
on it.
actually, it was the director, very important director, called and said, "You've got to come back and do a picture about a test pilot, and you'll be the love interest. It's starring Bill Holden." Well, everybody had a fainting fit to go back because Bill Holden was such an important actor at that time and just so cute and good looking and all the rest. So I had met his mother at a coffee one time. Her name was Mrs. Beadle. His name was Billy Beadle. They changed it, thank goodness, to Holden. But anyway, we went back, and Walt and I sat with he and the director, and I said, "Walt, I just can't do it. I just cannot do it." And I came home, and I've never really ever... And he was, I guess, really so smart. Walt said, "I want you to go out there and meet them. And I never want you to say, 'Oh, gosh, if it hadn't been for you, I could have been in a movie with Bill Holden or whomever else,
Was there a method to your madness in that?
Sure. I mean, it was such a important, not only Holden was a top actor in Hollywood then, and it was a great compliment to her for him to want her back. And if she'd have wanted to do it, I would have encouraged her to do it. So, no, I thought it was important to go back and see. He was kind of a smart aleck.
No.
When she kept saying no to all the things they offered, he finally said, "You have a chance to do a picture with me," and all this. So that's when she said, "No, I don't want to do it."
Yeah. But then you came in Tulsa, and you took on causes here, and you've helped establish the Tulsa Library Trust. A library's named in your honor. You've contributed to the libraries. You have the Peggy V. Helmerich Distinguished Author Award, where you've honored many famous authors. Any of these jump out at you?
She's got a hospital.
Peggy V. Helmerich Women's Health Center at Hillcrest Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly the two of you, with your interest and Walt's interest as well, made a major contribution in our community. Any one of those jump out as a particular passion, education, health education, or all?
Well, of course, I love the library, and I've done a lot of stuff in libraries around it. But I just think, you have to read. Even if you never read, you just watch your internet all the time. You've got to be able to read. You've got to be able to communicate. And I think that's what libraries are all about, all for. You've got.
Did you
to
have a
do
reading
that.
passion?
I didn't. We lived about a block from the library in Covington, and the only thing I can remember doing down there was wrapping bandages, and kids used to go down there to knit socks for soldiers during my teenage years, because everybody was in the war. But there was not a real passion. I had to read because, of course, I had to do scripts and just read every script, and a lot of Shakespeare and lots of wonderful theater writers, and that was always fascinating to me. Authors are just such a special breed to sit. I've been trying to get him to write a book for a long time. And
I know. So have I.
Do it. Oof.
So have I. Well, the two of you are very fortunate, living long life and being able to contribute. I thank you very much, Peggy, for doing this.
You're
Your
so welcome.
final words, there are students listening to this. They want to be an actress. They want to be a Peggy Dow. They want to be an actor. What would you say to them?
I would say don't try to be someone else. Just be yourself and go to the library. Read a lot. It's a treasure house. And that's what you should be into. There are just so many wonderful opportunities to see other kinds of things there, any kind of things. Take advantage of it. That's what we want you to do.
Good. And I know you still like movies. Isn't that true, Walt?
Not like we used to, but...
Yeah, I love movies. I still watch her movies.
And so you have all her movies?
Sure. Yeah.
And they're all black and white?
Yeah.
You turn them on, and Walt, you still enjoy watching them?
Sure. She looks just the same to me.
Oh, no.
Well, thank you, Peggy.
Thank you, John.
You have been listening to the Voices of Oklahoma podcast, stories taken from the oral history website voicesofoklahoma.com. At the website, you will discover an array of storytellers. Many you will know. Some will be new to you, but all will be worth your time. This work depends on listeners like you, who are interested in learning about the great people of Oklahoma. Our website provides an opportunity to donate to this 501c3 project, which preserves Oklahoma history, one voice at a time. voicesofoklahoma.com. You have been listening to the Voices of Oklahoma podcast, stories taken from the oral history website voicesofoklahoma.com. At the website, you will discover an array of storytellers. Many you will know. Some will be new to you, but all will be worth your time. This work depends on listeners like you, who are interested in learning about the great people of Oklahoma. Our website provides an opportunity to donate to this 501c3 project, which preserves Oklahoma history, one voice at a time. voicesofoklahoma.com.